Lions got themselves back on track with a big win over the Washington Commanders, 44-22. And now, since the Eagles have beaten the Green Bay Packers, they're back in first place of the NFC North with a huge matchup coming up this weekend against the Eagles. But today we're going to review this game, recap it, go through some of the key plays from this game and what stood out when watching this game back against the Commanders. So let's get right into it. On the defensive side of the ball, Washington ran the ball okay in this game. I actually think they ran the ball pretty well for what I would have expected from our run defense. I think they did a pretty nice job. I've always talked about how much versatility they have in the rushing game. I think it's their superpower as a team is that there's so much that they can bring to the table, and I think Dan Campbell even alluded to that when talking about it right after the game of how many different concepts and schemes they can throw at you as a rushing offense, and I think we felt that in today's game. But also, their offensive line played pretty well, right? Specifically, their tackle play, Josh Connerly Jr., Laramie Tunsil. They leaned behind Laramie Tunsil. He was able to create some good double teams, get movement, and I think we felt that. And our interior defensive line was not great in this game. And that was the area that we pointed out in the preview of we need those guys to get wins up front to be able to handle multiple gaps. Specifically, that player that is dealing with the single block, right? That's not getting double teamed at the point of attack, that can work off the backside and give us some support. And occasionally, I thought we saw that. EJ Reader occasionally flashed that early in the game, late in the game, a little bit from Aleem McNeil as well, getting upfield and forcing cutbacks. I didn't think he consistently made stops, but he would force some cutbacks by getting upfield. And Roy Lopez, he played 12 snaps in this game and was very impactful in those 12 snaps. If anything, it's very positive to know that you have that kind of depth where that you can go to a guy like Roy Lopez and maybe he can be the difference and he matches up well for that opponent where he's not getting pushed around. And Roy Lopez showed out in this game. I think he's continuing to earn more looks. 12 snaps still doesn't feel like enough as we continue to work Aleem McNeil back, but the Lions really haven't let off the gas with having Aleem McNeil roll to about 50 snaps a game, so I don't really expect anything to change at this point now that we've seen this. Go through and break down this video. This is the perfect type of video to understand what the Lions are doing and maybe jump on the bandwagon once again and believing that this Lions offense is going to continue cooking. But this also means it's the perfect time to potentially get in on your MVP odds. Right now there's a lot of buzz around Matthew Stafford winning the award, Drake May. But Jared Goff quietly sitting here at plus 2,600. His numbers are some of the best in football across the board, now leading the NFL in completion percentage as of the latest that I checked. He has just under the amount of yards per game as Drake May to this point this season, 20 touchdowns to 3 interceptions, which is another one of the best in football so far this year. Success rate is incredibly high, and also we're sitting at 6-3. So if you think the Lions are going to go on a run, he's still kind of being sneaky, sitting there at that 20 plus 2,600, and I think it's worth mentioning that the Lions do play Sunday Night Football against the Eagles, which makes that line super interesting to me right now. I mean, I feel like those are really strong odds to potentially get in on at this point. Say the Lions beat the Philadelphia Eagles, the narrative feels like it's going to shift very quickly. And speaking of the narrative, let's go look at the NFL because the early line is out. Lions are currently plus 2.5 at Philadelphia. So right now you can get them as the underdog if you're feeling good about this week's game after watching Philly drop 10 points against Green Bay, which, by the way, I'm grateful for. I'm happy y'all won that game. So if you want to get on the action, make sure you sign up with my bookie. Use code DOSE when you do sign up. And if you opt in using your BetBack bonus token, any bet up to $500 is fully covered. So don't miss out. Get in on the action. Let's get back to today's video. See the strong double team on Aleem. You see Reader working on the backside with the one-on-one block, and he nearly makes a play here. But then also, I'm going to give credit to Brian Branch. Aiden Hutchinson got himself very involved in the run game as well. But Brian Branch, man, he was a dog. He was a dog against the run. He was impactful for our pass rushing as well. We'll see later. The Lions didn't get a ton of pressure by their first 4 consistently in this game. Some of that was more so schematic from Washington not having a ton of guys out in route concepts, balls getting out quickly. But then also to that, the Lions tried to find ways to create some pressure, and they did that with Brian Branch a lot of times, and we got one sack that really shut down the drive before it got started, and we'll show that here a little bit later. Also want to give credit to Thomas Harper, who stepped in at safety for the Lions. I didn't put the next play in here, but the Lions forced a 3-and-out in this first drive. It was a 3rd down and 3. We got off the field playing cover 3 defensively, and I think Thomas Harper has done a really good job. We'll show one of his 2-point conversion attempts offensively and how well he was moving in the back end, but I think Thomas Harper has done a really good job stepping in at safety. He's brought a lot to the table for the Lions, specifically in that free safety role. He's freed up Brian Branch a bit. Now let's flip it to the other side of the ball. We'll go offensively here. And for the Lions, leaning into kind of an outside zone look. But what I like is that they were really getting downhill as an offensive line, especially early in this game, leaning into some of these down blocks. But one of the biggest points, and it's the point that we made right after the game, was the offensive line moved these guys around from jump, right? That was the biggest difference. What was the big difference? Why was Lions offense successful? Well, they pushed around Washington all game long, and they forced Washington to play some single high coverages, and they attacked it. I would also say this, because we're going to go through a lot of things here. I would also say Washington did off their head coach Dan Quinn now, and I got to be honest, some of the things situationally, like the 4th down and 1, where they're going into like Tampa 2, like some of their decision making didn't make any sense defensively. So I will admit there were times where you're watching, you're thinking this is not the cleanest defense that we're playing right now. This is a team that's not putting themselves in a position to even have a chance to be successful. They're just completely out leveraged on this play, and we saw examples of that. But also, again, the run game set up so much for us, of course, in the passing game, and you'll see that the impact that the run game gave us in the passing attack was massive. It also helped us a lot in terms of pass protection as well, because we weren't constantly sitting back and drop back passing spots. Credit K.O.'d, I thought, stepped in, created a lot of movement. That's something he's always been able to do, but he did that. Graham Glasgow, I thought, was great. I thought Graham Glasgow was great in this game. I thought he was very consistent as a run blocker. Taylor Decker got back on track. Really, everybody across the board, I think, did a pretty good job run blocking. This is an example just getting downhill. Situationally, the Lions were very intelligent, anticipating the coverages they were going to get, and there was a lot of instances where we had just matchups created before the snap, and we were able to isolate guys and get guys wide open. Now, that said, it wasn't always the case. I think 3rd down occasionally gave us some problems, right? Like, here comes the cover 0. Maybe we didn't have the best look for it, but for the most part, we seemed to be pretty prepared on what we were going to get, and some of these drives just look easy because of that, right? Now, we saw that on film. Washington was not the most creative secondary team. They didn't do a ton of movement in the secondary in terms of coverages that they throw at you. There's a lot of cover 3. That's what they are in base. They mixed in some quarters in this game, and a lot of times the disguises weren't really that noticeable. I think the Lions did a good job of getting themselves in a spot where they weren't consistently in a position where there could be much creativity in the secondary, but there just wasn't, and the Lions just took advantage of that with a very good game plan coming in, isolating their players one-on-one. Long angle here, but we get a cover 3 blitz. I really want to point out the pass protection as well here, sliding across, dealing with these defense linemen. Look at K.O. handling it one-on-one, and they end up getting Jahmyr Gibbs isolated one-on-one on the linebacker because now they only have 3 underneath defenders. They clear out, and then they get Jahmyr Gibbs isolated for this angle route. And that was kind of a sign of things to come. Terrion Arnold deserves some love, man. Terrion Arnold played a really good game. Hopefully he's okay. Example here in a cover 4. The Lions mixed some cover 4 in this game. There was some aggressiveness to their game plan, and I think we saw it really situationally. Like later in the game, we got some aggressiveness on 1st down to try to push them behind the sticks. But cover 4 was something that we mixed in a little bit more in this game. It was seemingly very clearly an approach for who they were playing in Washington, taking away some of the vertical shots, right? Because they do have a lot of vertical pass concepts in their attack, but they don't always have that many guys actually out in route concepts. So there was plenty of that where, okay, hey, I don't have a guy I can go rush on the play. Moving back to the offensive side of the ball now, and then here's a great example of the Lions just isolating a matchup that they won. They're going jumbo package offensively. They mixed in a lot of jumbo package in this game. Jumbo 12 personnel here, and defensively they're going to go cover 3. But again, pre-snap, you can get a really good tell that that's probably what this is going to be. You can see the single high safety, so you got a safety ruled down. You can also see the outside corners bailing into their deep thirds, and you can see as well you have Dan Skipper lined out wide, which seems crazy, but they have a cornerback lined over top of him, which makes you think, okay, this is probably not man coverage because that would be a waste of our cornerback. Plus, with Lions going this heavy personnel-wise, the defense is now in a base package. They only have 4 defensive backs on the field. So matchup-wise, if you're going to put a cornerback over Skipper, you're wasting that piece with 2 safeties, 2 defensive backs. And that allows St. Brown to get matched up with a matchup that you like, which is Trey Amos, and that's a great matchup, and we went at that in this game a few times. But then also it's the spacing of it. Going to the weak side of the formation, going to the slat flank concept, and because you do that, you end up peeling the linebackers out of the play and peeling that underneath support here with Bobby Wagner. That's where the eyes set first, and it allows on the backside you to really just isolate Amon-Ra St. Brown one-on-one. So ultimately here, it looks crazy, but it really simplified what the Lions were getting, and I think it allowed them to find a really consistent attack to this defense. And as a side note, in fairness, we tried this last week as well, having Skipper at receiver. It just turned into an incomplete pass. So this kind of wrinkle has been something Lions have implemented, just that this time around, it was successful against kind of a little bit more straightforward coverage approach. Staying on the offensive side of the ball here, now we'll find Sam Laporta on a 14-yard gain. Again, another cover 3 look here. This time they go cover 3 blitz. So at least they were mixing in some blitzing looks. At this point, this is when Penei Sewell stepped out, so the Lions went to a power play action. They brought their guard over. I thought they down blocked here with Skipper, which helped him out a little bit in pass pro, immediately having to bring him in. Elements that were added to this, and this makes me think of the Lions offense at their best. When they have things like this where you have Khalif Raymond going through this end-around motion or this orbit motion behind the play, and because of that motion, now you peel out that outside, backside defender in zone coverage. So basically that flat defender is now taken out of the play by Khalif Raymond. That's a threat. So it clears the middle of the field. Then on top of all of that, the power play action, of course, with how you were running the football, the presence that it gives to these inside zone defenders to step and fill their gaps, right? To give you that read step. They step aggressively downhill, and now all of a sudden the middle of the field opens up, and it's because Sam Laporta is inside blocking, and then he just leaks to the middle of the field, and it clears wide open. Overall, this was pretty simplistic, but it's something we've done before. And when we can run the ball like this is the problem that it gets to defenses. And this is a great example of that problem that we can create when we can run the ball like this. Another cover 3 look here defensively. This time I thought it was a really good check here on a 3rd down and 7 to get to this look offensively. This would be a good instance of, again, just being out-leveraged defensively because this is a base cover 3, right? You have your normal zone defenders here, but you can overload a cover 3 because it's a balanced coverage. And in this case, that's basically just what happens here. They get overloaded to the strong side. They don't have a defender underneath to deal with Laporta, and it turns into the 1st down. They end up scoring a touchdown. One of the biggest takeaways for me in this game, speaking of the pass concepts, was the spacing. I thought it was so detailed by the way the Lions maneuvered spacing to find openings and find windows against this zone coverage. A red zone cover 2 look, so the cornerbacks are going to play a little bit softer here in zone coverage, but the key to me is Sam Laporta. Goff brings over Sam Laporta here pre-snap, and you can see how detailed he is with making sure Sam Laporta is where he's supposed to be on the play. Sam Laporta is also off the line of scrimmage here, so he doesn't need to come to a complete stop, but he does. They're very detailed about getting into the right spot of the formation. At this point, it almost looks like they're playing more of kind of a quarters match here by setting their safeties on top of these inside threats, right, where the linebacker can now give it off to the safety. You can get that idea by the movement that you get pre-snap. So what they do is they just use Sam Laporta by bringing him into that spot to clear that safety out of the play, but he's also in turn going to pull the linebacker as well because the linebacker has to hold it vertically and then drop it off to the safety. So as Sam Laporta takes 2 guys with him, it clears the middle of the field, and the spacing here, the timing with Jared Goff to hit St. Brown, find the gap, and then seam upfield here. It's beautiful. The Lions did so much of this. These little spacing spots and windows that they found were very detailed, very crisp in this game, and the Lions are really good with the details within these passing concepts to find these little windows and opening. I give a lot of credit to the game plan coming in terms of the prep with the pass concepts, David Shaw, whoever we want to give that to, because it was very detailed all game long. Again, back to the rushing attack, kind of what we mentioned before. Here we got a 2nd down and 2. He picked up 8 yards on 1st down with a screen to Khalil Freeman, so now you're in a positive spot once again here. And this is 9 yards for Jahmyr Gibbs. You go a little lighter, 11 personnel here. Looks like a little bit more of a duo block, so you get these kind of strong double teams, especially on the backside here when you look at Graham Glasgow, when you look at Tate Ratledge. To me, this is significant because Dan Campbell brought up the different rush schemes that, you could see implemented, and the Lions did change it up a bit with this kind of approach in this game. It's much more downhill. Again, it's down blocking, it's clearing out these plays. It's essentially one of those gap schemes without having an actual puller on the play to get these quick hitters that the Lions were missing. We're just down blocking everybody, and I think that these allowed much more quick hitters for the Lions, right? Obviously, they weren't blowing blocks at the point of attack, which was huge. Even Coyote's lost blocks weren't that early, so he might get knocked back, but he would at least sustain to not just allow it a free hitter on the back. So at least it gave our running backs an opportunity to get positive. And on a play like this, you get right behind Taylor Decker with KO before KO ends up climbing, and Taylor Decker just peels his man completely out of the play. Also, shout out to Laporta doing some work here on this backside edge set. They handled that well against their defensive ends. This time we get behind Tate Ratledge on the backside here. You see that one-on-one single block, his drive on the play. Gibbs is able to work off of that, and he's able to press the line of scrimmage, fill the linebacker, fill that A gap, and then he's able to bounce off the backside of that B gap there with how well Tate Ratledge is handling that. We only needed 3 yards on this play. This was a 3rd down and 2, so he just needed to get upfield here, which is what Tate Ratledge allowed by really handling this block one-on-one. A cover 4 look, and you could just see that, man, they were exposing themselves underneath. The cover 4, you only have 3 underneath defenders, right? But here, to the backside of the formation, again, that weak side, we just attacked it in the passing game. The strong side of the formation, the 2 tight ends in line in the back, that's where their underneath coverage goes. All of their underneath coverage goes there, right? Because you have a guy on the line of scrimmage that's dropping out, so you have your 3 underneath defenders all on one side of the field. Meanwhile, on the backside, you might have an edge defender that can drop. He doesn't. So I think as soon as you recognize that from Goff, you know that this is open. You have 2 deep corners. That means everything underneath is open on a play like this. And this is where the quick hitters were just beating them up. I love the pocket movement from Goff, the slide, keeping his eyes downfield, but it's just a really quick sit down here, a short angle here from Khalil Freeman. It picks up a nice little gain on his stretch play. You can see they end up kind of sealing Aleem McNeil. Roy Lopez had an opportunity to make the stop on a play like this, but on the backside with that double team block, they seal Aleem McNeil at the point of attack. That's where he was pretty inconsistent with dealing with some of these double teams just like this. And Roy Lopez now on the front side, he's the single-sided block. He has to make a play for us in a game like this. And he was very close to doing that. He got a field, got the shed, just didn't make the tackle. See just that, right? You get this toss stretch play. Roy Lopez gets himself upfield, creates some knockback, knocks the offensive lineman into the running back, and creates a negative run play here. So again, Roy Lopez just won his one-on-ones. That was the biggest thing for me overall in this game, to give him a lot of credit and understand that he needs to continue to get looks going forward. Here, Derek Barnes kind of wanted to hold, didn't get a holding call. That was their jet touch pass. This one worked pretty well for them. TA ended up making the play. I will say the next time they ran this, we stopped it. I believe it was Thomas Harper who shut it down for like a 1-yard gain. So again, he's done a really nice job. Love the concept here that we have. We have the deep post route from Jameson Williams with the 2 deep over routes that the line set up well. This is probably one of the more creative looks that you had defensively here going into this cover 3 cloud look. Having that outside corner stay underneath is one of your deep outside pieces. And while Goff throws a kind of a low pass here to Khalif Raymond, you can understand why he did it. There was a lot of room, which kind of adds to like, dang, this could have been a massive play if you'd have just let him over top. But part of that too was that Goff was holding that free safety vertically on this play, trying to kind of hold that free safety. That way he could hit this over route and get Khalif Raymond open and find that route. So he took the one route that was going to be open on this play, delivered a okay pass, but I do like where his eyes were going, and I do like the concept that the Lions were trying to set here. While there was a little bit of disguise in the back end because they were doing it as a cloud coverage, it worked out well. Then we have one of these running back screens, and look, neither of these screens worked for the Lions. They did this after an injury, and I thought that they were expecting the defense to get a feel because their 4th and 1 pickup, there was 2 blown blocks in the interior, so I think they were expecting that kind of aggressive attack, so they went to back-to-back screens, and neither of them worked, but this second one definitely could have worked. It's very similar to what happened last week, right? You ran 3 of them this week, one of the 3 hit. This one is just, hey, man, you got a little bit too far outside of KO'd on the play, who is supposed to get out there and lead block. And if he gets this block and he could just get hands on it, we may pop. I think Goff also pulled the running back too far out of this play. Peeling him out of the play, it shut down the catch and run opportunity again. This was a great time to run this. This could have absolutely been a very successful play here for Dave Montgomery, and it could have been very good timing for it. It's just that the execution was not there. Being a Tampa 2 look here, which is just kind of strange in general, but I kind of get it. Like if you're trying to hide man coverage to go to Tampa 2, but to just call that straight up and not have it show man coverage was crazy because it just led to a massive opening for the Lions here. Like again, typically you run this thinking that, okay, maybe we disguise it for man and then we go to Tampa 2 and that could be successful, but to just run it, they're not even really disguising it that well. I mean, maybe if you think the safety is stepping down in man, maybe, but after the short motion, nobody moves for Washington. So it looks pretty straightforward that, okay, this does not look like man coverage. If it was, that would, I guess, would have been the surprise here, but it wasn't. It was exactly what it looks like. Khalif just delays his get off, and again, he is not covered on the play. So some of this too is Washington defensively was messy. And all the credit I give to the Lions, and they executed it well and they took advantage of it. I don't know what the heck Washington was doing here. We run a sit-down route to Khalif. You have the corner behind it with the vertical route to peel out that coverage, and it just doesn't make any sense here. Short motion, you peel out that outside corner, so it created the spacing for them, and then the inside release from the number 3 receiver does help take the inside zone defender out of the play so that Khalif Raymond does get open. So again, the timing was really good. The pacing was really good here. The spacing was really good. For 3, they go to this buzz look. Safety steps in, and you get these 2 vertical routes on the outside. That takes the outside zone defenders with them and creates a little bit of space for Laporta, but I love how Laporta runs this. He breaks the out route, but settles it down and pulls it back to the quarterback. That was so good. I mean, we end up being a yard short here, but it was so well done. And those 2 plays are backwards, by the way. You saw the 3rd down and 10 play before you saw the 4th down and 1 play. But ultimately, it was so good in terms of just the detail that we were running our routes with in this game to get ourselves open. If you're thinking of things that you want to see peak, it's things like that. As you get to the second half of the season, you need the details to be clean. And in this game, for whatever reason, the details were incredibly clean for the Lions within their passing concepts. And I know, David Shaw talked about it and how felt like they were very close and they needed to have more efficiency in the second level. Well, they had a lot of efficiency, and I think the details were a huge reason for that. And I give a lot of credit to Goff for getting that on track. Now here, this play was just a little thrown off of timing, so I threw it in here. This beneath route to St. Brown. The DN gets upfield. It throws off the timing a bit. It could have worked here with the cornerback having to work through all this traffic, but St. Brown getting slowed up kind of shut this thing down. End up switching off these 2 routes on the 3rd down and 6, which is why this thing cut off. They went to 2 cover 0 looks. The second one, I think we had a better potential plan for. I mean, St. got bumped off his route, but we'll see it. But the point is here, they end up switching off these 2 routes, so what the Lions were trying to do or what Goff was looking for here doesn't actually end up opening up here. They switch it off so it doesn't, and then Dave Montgomery misses his block, so you don't really have the opportunity to get back to the second reads in the middle of the field here. And it would have been undercut anyways, but you didn't have that opportunity because Monty lost his blocks. I just want to give credit to Jameson Williams. Like, this route that I think he ran here was really nice. At the top of the route, the way that he broke this thing off really didn't lose any kind of pace here. It was very quick footwork, and then ultimately he was able to work himself back. Goff standing in there, giving him a good ball. But ultimately here, man, I really like the way that Jamison Williams was just running his routes as we go through this ride. Cover 4 look, they were getting a couple of these, and I just think that the way that they were able to recognize what they were getting on a 1st and 10 here to hit the speed out route. Again, I really like it from Tesla as well. I think it's fine, the kind of route integrity he holds vertically, but when he snapped this thing off, the way that he showcases body control to keep his footwork in bounds, the strong hands through contested situation, this is Isaac Tesla. This is who he was back at Arkansas with that kind of body control to get his feet down. So it's nice to see that kind of on display here. We get to another run play. I mean, just look at the movement. This is what I'm talking about. This is the problem. It's hard to defend this. There's not really a great answer for this. If you can't stop this, there's not a great answer for it. What I really like about this, too, is this is an example similar to last week where you got linebackers jumping gaps. You see Bobby Wagner on the backside, and also notice the 3-tech over Tate trying to jump into that A gap, and you see KO'd. He has to be reactive here as the defensive lineman jumps through the B gap, so the linebacker steps down into the A gap, and all of these guys are adaptive. Tate's athleticism to stay in front of this reach block here and not get crossed his face, and then forcing this into a cutback lane, and for KO to adapt and find hands and peel his man out of the play so you can work back through Tate. It's really good adaptiveness from this entire offensive line. Just not making mistakes, finding a way to react to the movement, get hands, and allow our running backs to do the rest. That's such a huge key, and they take advantage of. This is what was on the table against Minnesota. The problem was things like this would create blown blocks and losses in the backfield because we wouldn't pick these up. The Lions in this game were picking these up just like this. Other defensive backs are kind of hiding a little bit, that free safety. I mean, look at how deep they're playing. Because of that, the Lions take advantage of it. And this is a key part here because that free safety is 15 yards off the line, which is typically considered a deep alignment. So you have the defensive backs bailing back to not give up the vertical plays, and at the same time, the linebackers are aggressively sitting underneath. They're worried about the vertical speed, and then you have your linebackers underneath aggressively having to peel down to try to play the run at all cost. So that opens up the middle of the field so much in a spot like this, and obviously J-Mo's threat. Play fake, watch all the underneath defenders step up on a play like this. You also utilize, again, the tight end, which is this kind of little minute details that the Lions were utilizing when they had Ben Johnson. These were the things, and it reminds me of a Ben Johnson ran offense. The minute details of, hey, let's get our tight end involved here to pull this second level down to get behind it here. And then Jamison Williams breaking off that route right in front of the safety. You try to use the backside receiver to clear it out, but ultimately you don't even need it. Ball's out quick. It's on time for Jamison Williams. He flattens his route, and then he takes off after he makes the grab. But I just really like the fact that every little detail is great here, and utilizing the tight end underneath to really hold those second-level defenders underneath. I mean, the details of that are fantastic. And then even on a play like this, offensively, you get a man coverage look, which you can tell pre-snap by how you're aligning. Look at the 2x2 look here. Look at the tight ends. Look who's matching up. You got a safety and you got a linebacker mashed up. We're getting a man coverage look. You're just getting an off-man look here. You clear out the safety, you run an in-breaker, and again, watch Jamison Williams. He doesn't lose any kind of pace as he works through this in-breaker. This is fantastic from Jamison Williams. I got to give him a lot of credit, man. He has become much more, I would say, decisive was his route running. There's not a lot of extra that's being added to this route running. It's very clear. It's very simple, and he's running right through it. And a lot of these routes that they're asking him to run are a lot of that. Vertical push to just step on the brakes, right? Running through these in-breakers, but really not losing any pace as he's doing it. He's doing a great job at the route running that they're asking him. Again, it brings me back to last year. A lot of this just makes sense, and he's executing it at a very high level. Now, back to the defense side of the ball here on a 1st down and 10, this counter pull. You can see you get a Lee McNeil here who gets kind of ran out of the play with the double team at the point of attack, which was a bit of an issue. I do give credit, though. Reader on the backside. He is now the singled up block. Someone's got to make a play, and he makes the play. We need that when we're in a spot against a team like this that creates such strong double teams at the point of attack, is for that singled block to go win. And we kind of get an example of that again here on a 2nd down and 7, where Tyler Lacey on this play gets kind of pushed off the play here. Now, we end up giving up a 3-yard run, which isn't awful, but Tyler Lacey, slow to get into his set, gets pushed off the play on the double team. We're seeing their quick hitters as an offense, and it gets us pushed downhill. I would like to see Lacey set a little bit faster on a play like this. I like Aleem getting upfield here, but again, he's on the backside. He's singled up. We're not getting a lot of help with these strong double teams at the point of attack or linebackers at the fill. So it's only a 3-yard run on the play like this, but ultimately the guy like Tyler Lacey gets set slowly, and then here the Lions go cover 0. They end up bringing their slot on the play, and they don't switch this thing off. And from Brian Branch's perspective, we're playing an in-and-out leverage. I don't know why this doesn't get switched off in a play like this. Between Brian Branch and Amik Robertson, it probably should. Now, I think the route maybe holds Amik on this play because it gets wrapped back outside instead of staying inside. I mean, if this is just an obvious slant from the get-go, then maybe this thing gets passed off. But to be honest with you, I think it should get dropped off here. I think Branch is doing the right thing. It's in-and-out leverage, and they don't pass this off. Now let's give some Thomas Harper love. This is their 2-point conversion. Watch Thomas Harper. First off, he's doing a really good job of directing traffic pre-snap. But then once the ball is snapped, his ability to step down, recognize the first read, you got to take that threat away, play fake, steps down, takes it away, and he's there. And then on the backside, Amik Robertson's doing a great job with whip route, takes that away, and then a retreat from Thomas Harper to stay with the route and take it away in the back of the end zone. Everything there from Thomas Harper I really like. Steps down for the run fit, then takes away that first route. The backside of Meek's doing a good job, and then we take away the second read from the quarterback. It's all well done here. We then get Jamison Williams on another route that we've ran for years, a concept that we've ran for years. I mean, we go back to playing Carolina and watching Josh Reynolds run this. I think before Jamison Williams was here, we did this kind of thing where up front you just get a straight man coverage. The Lions end up checking into this look, seeing man coverage across the board, and it's very straightforward what it is. Running across the field. They bump into each other, which makes it even better, but you just use Jamison's speed to run away from everybody. Not overly complex, but a concept that we've used before, something that we've done before, right? The play calling is very reminiscent of things that we've done in the past. And then again, for the blocking scheme, it's set up everything for us. The stretch look, but on the backside, you end up holding that backside defender. How do you do that? You do that with Khalif Raymond, who races across the formation on the snap. So now he holds that backside. He opens up a cutback lane. Now we don't even have to go to it on this play because of the movement that we ultimately end up creating here at the point of attack, staying and kind of continuing to work off of that. Now we get a 3rd down and 1, and again, they're showing all these cover 2 looks on 3rd down and 1, right? We're seeing it, right? Cover 4, cover 2, 2 deep safeties. So the Lions just attack that. They get zone coverage on a 3rd down look here, just like this on the 3rd down and 1. You get this motion across pre-snap here by the tight end. No one moves. You can see, hey, it's obviously cover 2 here, right? This is obviously some sort of zone coverage. And then for JMO just to sit down the window. The play fake sells. Linebacker steps down. Again, you use Monty to do that. You also have the tight end, again, split zoning on the backside, which takes the eyes of those underneath defenders, and it allows this thing to open up wide open, and it's just an easy hitter for Jared Goff. The Lions did not make this thing overly complex. Everything they did was simplified. But everything they did was also eye candy, which was really tapped into well. Now, we did get stalled out here in the red zone with these 2 runs. The stretch run here, this one becomes a blown block here by KO, gets pushed back, but he does at least sustain it, I think, a bit here to give us an opportunity to get upfield and still create a little bit of a positive gain. However, on this 3rd down look here, we get kind of stuffed up here, and it had an opportunity to be successful. It just wasn't. You had JMO running the out route. The biggest thing I would like to see is Goff stand in the pocket a little bit longer here, because Saint gets bumped out really by the spacing that you created offensively, right? When they go cover 0, the pass protection is really good. It's picked up really well. Very positive from last week. The protection's on point. Great. You give yourself tons of time. Here gives falls on the ground coming out of this break. If he stays on his feet here coming out of this break, he probably has a walk-in touchdown. That's clearly kind of the second idea, or maybe the first read here for Jared Goff as he falls down. Then you come back to St. Brown, who gets bumped off. He never opens up. And then Goff just starts to move to get to this out route. I think if Goff just stands in, he feels a little bit of heat here. But honestly, I think if he doesn't leave the pocket, he has an opportunity to hit Jamison Williams on a rope here out of his break. And he was throwing these passes really well. He starts to move with it. But again, I don't think it's necessary that he even does that. He pulls himself out of the pocket. And I think if he was just a little bit patient to stand in, I think even he would tell you that he would have gave us a better opportunity. He makes it essentially a throwaway on this play. This is how the Lions started to create pressure. They weren't getting a lot of it from their front four. Credit to Washington. So how do they do it? Brian Branch. Cover 3 blitz here. They bring a 3-man rush, but it's really all Brian Branch. It's the spin move that he puts on here to create space on the left. I mean, this is all Brian Branch. And the very next play, we end up going simulated pressure with Brian Branch. Now, it ended up not getting there, but they were using Brian Branch. They dropped touch. They gave up 12 yards. They got the stop on 3rd down by a pass breakup from Arthur Millette. But ultimately here, that's who they kind of turned to try to create some pressure, was what they could get out of Brian Branch. That was the wrinkle. And again, offensively, nothing's that complex here. It's very simple spacing. It's attacking poor coverage defensively and anticipating what you're getting. The Lions did not overcomplicate things. They understood that Washington doesn't have a lot going on in their secondary. It's pretty straightforward. It's very predictable. And because of that, the Lions win at it. So here, what do we get? A cover 4 look. So you go, hey, let's go with the short motion out for St. Brown. We'll go fast motion here. We snap it on the movement. Because of that, you just use St. Brown to run this little out route. You clear out with Jamison Williams for this deep quarter type of coverage here from the outside cornerback. And you're also peeling out the underneath defender here. And you utilize that fast motion on the snap to not allow that flat defender to get out there. And he gets pushed up vertically before he can get out there. So it gives a ton of space to Amon-Ra St. Brown. Again, nothing overly complex with what their attack is here. We wrap it up with this pin pull touchdown, which is something that we carried over from last week. But ultimately here, it's just the execution. And it's really Jahmyr Gibbs' speed. I don't know what the safety is doing on a play like this. He's playing this way too soft. And you see that conservative nature from the safety cost him. It gives up a touchdown to Jahmyr Gibbs' speed. So ultimately here, a lot of plays that we went to, it kind of sped through that last side. But I think a few things stood out. The offensive line was great run blocking across the board. We didn't put them in bad positions, pass protection, because they weren't great, but we didn't put them in a lot of bad spots consistently. We took advantage of a simplistic and predictable coverage by being very good with the little nuances, having this little movement element, having this little element behind the line of scrimmage that creates spacing for us up front. Nothing was overly complex from what the Lions did, and they lean into isolated matchups by early in the game, how they aligned with jumbo package, and by late in the game, how they played off of their heavy run action and being able to create one-on-one matchups with Jamison Williams just went out and won over and over and over, which is beautiful to see. It brought us back to a lot of what you felt last year, but a lot of route concepts that have been here since day one. Nothing's really changed. Nothing's overly complex. Nothing is being, grabbed from the sky here. It's just that the Lions are being able to run the football, and when you can run the ball like this and your O-line is playing at that level, everything becomes a lot easier. Nothing has to be overly complex. The pass protection picking up a six-man rush. Even on an incomplete pass, you see that. That's a really good job by the O-line communication. So ultimately, I give a lot of credit to that. I don't think that Washington took a good enough advantage of in trying to approach us in terms of some of their aggressiveness defensively, but even when they did, we picked it up. So ultimately here, I think this was a really well done, well executed job here by the offense. And while the defense, I want to see better run defensive efforts here. Ali McNeil got pushed back. Some of the double teams gave us some problems. We did more than enough to give ourselves an opportunity. The scrambles from them came through our cover 4 looks, which was unique to what we were playing and what we were getting here from Washington, which was another great element to what we got in this game. Ultimately, very pleased with how the Lions performed. Now here is the great challenge. It felt like a great ramp-up game to the challenge that we are going to get against Philadelphia. I'm going to leave it there. Shout out to MyBookie for sponsoring today's video. Thank you, Prop, for watching. Use code DOSE when you sign up, and I'm out.